Good morning. Welcome to Hometown Heroes Podcast. Mary, you have a very special guest today. Tell us who you've got.
Boy, we are blessed this morning to have Mr. Jack Stowe on with us this morning. It has been quite a challenge to get Jack because typically on Tuesday mornings, Jack was always out making breakfast for the boys. So we couldn't get him on here till he quit doing that. And so we're really excited about getting Jack here to tell his story from World War II and share with everybody what he's done, where he's been, and Jack is actually one of my absolute favorites and one of my heroes because when he tells his story, we think of war and we think of all the ugliness, but there is, we've said this before, there is humor in war, and Jack's going to tell us a little bit about that. But Jack, let's just kind of jump in with, when you were growing up. Where did you grow up? You grew up in the Great Depression. What were your experiences?
I was born in Denton, but we moved to a little town called Ponder. Back in those days, there was no paved streets, no sidewalk, no electricity, no movies, no gas.
There's not much in Ponder except a steakhouse now, and it's a pretty good steakhouse.
Yeah. My dad was a blacksmith. He had a blacksmith shop there. So I've seen a lot of changes.
Yeah. What was it like growing up in those days? Do you go to school and
Well, because the kids look at things a lot different. They don't see the bad part of it. Really, kids don't. But after you get older and everything, you look back but everybody was in the same boat. And everybody seemed back in those days. I remember the farmers. It was farmland, and when they harvested at harvest season, after we was through, we'd take our wagons and go through the place, and what was left, they'd let us gather it up. And stuff like that everybody helped everybody then.
Yeah, things were not so good in those days, right?
No, they weren't.
It was kind of tough getting everybody taken care of and fed, and then the war broke out. Where were you, Jack, when the war broke out?
Well, we'd moved to Fort Worth in about 1935, and when the war broke out, I was working in a grocery store on a Sunday, and we heard the news that the war had broke out. I was 15 at that time. But then,
Jack, what area of Fort Worth did you live in?
we lived in South Side. Everybody call it South Side.
Okay.
South Side, North Side. Fort Worth. But that was the two things: South Side and North Side.
Okay.
A lot of gang activity back then.
Did your father continue to be a blacksmith, or did he get a different kind of?
He did. He moved. We moved to Fort Worth in 1935, and he went to work in a shop called Champion Spring Company. And they built springs for used cars, older cars. They rebuilt the springs, and they straightened wheels. He had a forge in Ansville, just like he did blacksmith. And I remember turning the blower for the forge when he was over there working on the Ansville.
And people think about springs as the springs they have on cars now that look like a spring. But on those were big old metal deals that were shackled together.
Yeah, they're big leaf springs, they called them.
Yeah, that's what they call them.
Raw steel completely, made the whole spring. Tempered the steel and they had to bring it up to a certain temperature, and when it reached that temperature, they put it over in a jig and watered it, and that formed it, and then they put it in oil to temper it.
Yeah,
it was a process.
Did you ever work there with him? Did you do some blacksmith work?
I was just 14. Well, 35. I was too young to work there, but I did that big double door garage door that went up on you pull a chain to wind it up, and you pull that chain when you're letting it down, you just jerk it, and that thing goes down.
You better be out of the way.
When I was a little kid, I got to do it.
Where did you go to school?
I went to elementary school and here in Fort Worth, and I did get up to the 9th grade, and that's when the war broke out, and I was in the 9th grade.
Okay.
15 years old in the 9th grade.
And in 1942, that's when you joined the Navy, correct?
Well, the war started in 1941, in December. 4 months later, in April, is when I joined the Navy.
Okay, because my dad joined.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if Rick has it available.
I've got it in yonder. Can I go get it?
What's that?
Can you show
a photo? Do you
I got a
have
photo that was taken on my way to the recruiting office.
Oh, I don't know that we have that. I don't think. Okay. They took a picture on the way to the recruiting office, huh?
Yes, sir.
And he was 15. Yeah, hopefully everybody caught that. He was 15 years old.
Can you imagine?
You can't go in the Navy at 15
No,
years
you
old.
can go
How
in
do
at
you manage that?
17 with your parents' permission, but no way you could get in at 15.
Well, did you forge?
Document.
Did you forge the documents?
Well, a secretary did for me.
Okay. I think the statute of limitations is way past.
I didn't have a birth certificate, so I went to the school administration and got a document of when I started the school that had the date in it.
Uh-huh.
And the secretary whited out that date and put 28 on it, which made me 17.
How'd you get her to do that, Jack?
I just asked her if she done it. But over in France, I was talking to this young lady who was in the service, and I told her about that. She said, well, I'm in the reserves, and actually I'm a police officer, said I'm going to arrest you for falsifying a document. I thought that was pretty good.
It's classic Jack. We were talking probably more than a month ago about his birthday coming up in September, and he's excited because he's going to get a letter from the Navy, aren't you, Jack?
Yeah, I hope to, saying I'm 100 years old. But, they still don't know that I went in when I was 15. And if I don't get that letter, I'm going to be disappointed.
I bet you will. So did you go to San Diego for your basic training?
I went to San Diego for my boot training. Yes, I did.
Okay. And how long was it before you went to the South Pacific? You had to go do some other training too, didn't you?
While, altogether, it was about, from the time I joined to the time I was crossing the equator, was about 8 months.
Okay.
But when I went to boot camp, they one of the first things they did to give us a battery of tests, IQ tests, different tests, and part of it is on the Morse code. Of 100 letters, I got about 85 of them right. And so I'm sure they said, this guy make a good radioman. So when I got out of boot camp, the first place they sent me to radio school in Los Angeles. Big mistake. Because I had a radioman, he has to know how to spell pretty good. And I didn't have any education. So if the code comes in on your ears and it goes to your fingers, your typewriter has no letters on it. You have to know how to type without letters. And so me not knowing how to spell very well, they'd have to spell out the whole word. But if you had education in spelling, well, 2 or 3 letters, they'd know what the word was. So it didn't work. I got washed out.
Okay.
Well, they washed me out of there, and they sent me to a naval prison in San Pedro, California. I wasn't actually a prisoner, but they was using a prison as a holding facility to put some men together to form a unit.
Okay.
And they finally got enough of us together, misfits, I guess. They formed a unit called Acorn Red 4. And our job was to go in and establish the Halavo Seaplane Base. From San Pedro, they sent me to Oakland, California. But here's where the little humor comes in a way. I had gone with this girl in Los Angeles, So when I just left, went to Oakland. So I had the weekend off. I'll go back to Los Angeles to see the girl, and she's out with a sailor. But I decided to stay over for a little while. That's AOL, absent overleave. But I was about to miss my ship. I didn't want to miss my ship because that's pretty serious. So I went back, turned myself in, went up to captain's court, captain's mast, they call it, low court. They gave me 3 days in the brig, solitary confinements, bread and water. I got 3 slices of bread and a glass of water for each meal. The smoking lamp was only lit once in the morning and once in the evening. I didn't smoke, so it didn't bother me, but those boys that smoked, they were really bad. But they'd have a cell check. You never knew when. Your cell was 4 foot wide, 8 foot deep, 8 foot high, nothing in it, no windows, nothing. At night, they brought you a little pallet, but once in a while, they'd have a cell check. You never knew when. If they found any kind of paraphernalia in there, you got 10 days added to your sentence. They had to give you 1 full meal every 3rd day, and I did get that meal. But I went to see that girl, cost me solitary confinement and bread and water.
Well, let's talk about that girl. You told the Navy you were older. Did you tell that girl that you were just 15, or did you tell her that?
Put that uniform on, it does something to you. I mean, all the girls I went with were 19 and 20, 21. They had no idea. Just going with a 15, 16-year-old sailor.
And of course, with the uniform on, if you drank, you could go drink, couldn't you? I mean, they didn't check.
And a little more about that later.
So you only had to spend 3 days in the brig?
3 days in solitary confinement. They only had about 12 cells on the catwalk. You had to spend time down in the bullpen until a cell came open for you. Altogether, I was in there about 5 days. The only place I got homesick the whole time I was in there was in that cell by yourself. I was, what in the world am I doing in here?
Well, did you hitch?
The 4 years I was in, how old I was. I never told anybody.
Did you hitchhike down to Los Angeles? Is that how you got there? Did you ride the bus?
Oklahoma.
Okay.
But you mean earlier when he was absent? Did he?
Yeah. Whenever you went from Oakland down to Los Angeles, did you just hitchhike down there and hitchhike back?
I hitchhiked that a lot, more than once.
Yeah. I think that was pretty common for the soldiers and sailors to hitchhike. So,
yeah, back in those days, if you stand on a corner, they'd try to pick you up. Nowadays, I'd be afraid to get in a car, and I'd be afraid to pick somebody up. Nowadays, but back then, everybody was patriotic. They saw a serviceman, they'd stop and see if they could help him.
So from after you got out of the brig, did you go to your ship then?
After you got out of the brig, did you go to your ship?
Yes, I did. I've got a picture of that ship. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but that's the ship right there.
See if we can get that.
That's the ship that I sailed on. It's called a Liberty ship. They built them in about 1940. They started building them, and they were turning them out just one right after the other. But that's called a Liberty ship, and that's what we went over on. It's actually a island mail. They used it to take mail around in the islands over in the Solomons.
Uh-huh.
The Navy converted it into a transport. And I'd have to say, transport duty is the worst. You get 2 meals. They put too many men on them.
Yeah.
2 meals a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And we're all young guys, but that's all you got. You got 1 in the morning about 8:30 and 1 in the evening about 5. Got 2 canteens of water a day. And you got saltwater showers that you could take after about a week. You could rub your hand after you took a shower and dirt would come up. It wouldn't get you clean. And, there's no air conditioning down in the holds.
Oh my!
Troop ships was real bad. So
you went from Oakland? Did you go to Hawaii?
we had to take commando training in Port Hueneme. We were a landing unit. We didn't know what we're going to run into. So we had to go to a place called Port Hueneme where we did commando training. We learned judo and how to hurt somebody, how to use a bayonet, how to tear down a 50 caliber machine gun and put it back together. I was 16 when all this was going on. Barely 16.
And then after you completed that training,
Port Hueneme. You asked me about selling out. We sold out of Port Hueneme.
Okay, so that was along the coast then, coast of California.
Coast town, coast. Yeah.
Okay, and did you go to Hawaii or did you go to?
Oh, we sailed right on through. We didn't stop in Island. We had to take on fresh water. We stopped at New Caledonia and New Hebrides and Espiritu Santos.
Where were you at? Where did you stop in the New Hebrides?
Probably New Caledonia. I believe that's in the New Hebrides, but I'm not sure. It's one place where they got a leprosy colony, but that's the only place where we got a liberty. But I had an accident on the ship. I almost lost a leg, and I couldn't walk, and so I didn't get to go on that liberty. So I was on that ship for about 5 or 6 weeks, 4 weeks.
What happened? How did you almost lose your leg?
Well, like I say, they got liberty there, so they're using the whale boats, and when they lower a whale boat, they swing the boom over, and they lower a cable, and the cable's got 2 cables that come down front and back of the whale boat, and they hook into a ring down in the keel, one in the front, one in the back. Also, they got 2 men in it. I was one of them. There's a guy rope comes off the top where the cables hook on, and they tie to each side of the boat to keep it from rocking. And when they jerk that thing up out of the cable, that guy's tied, his knot come untied, and the boat flipped, and the cable come across my right leg. Ooh. And I was dangling then out over the ocean because they'd already lifted it up, swung it out over the ocean. And I was out there dangling, and everybody was motioning for them to bring the boat back in. And merchant Marines run those ships. Navy, they're Navy, but they're merchant Marines. And so the guy's scratching his head, but he finally swung me back over. And a group of men got under the boat because they're a big, heavy boat, and pulled it up, and I rolled out on the deck. And but I couldn't walk.
That could have cut your
the only liberty we had.
That could have cut your leg off.
Yeah, it cut that muscle down. Didn't break the skin, but my leg was black and blue for a long time. I was 16 again at that time.
Yeah, because my dad was in the Marine Corps, and he went in March of 42, and he was in the New Hebrides, and he was in the Solomon Islands, and then he was Guadalcanal and Gilbert Islands, and went on up to the Philippines. So your paths might have crossed.
I was the same place.
Yeah, their paths may have crossed, and they just didn't even know.
Only thing was, like he went on up to Gilbert's. The Gilberts were only 60 miles from Guadalcanal, is what I heard.
Yeah.
But they broke our outfit up. That was later on in the story. But they broke our outfit up, and they left the skeleton crew there. And I was part of the skeleton crew. So I did everything, a lot of them service and luck, just luck. I was just lucky that I was part of the crew they left, skeleton crew they left there on that island. The rest of them went up to Bougainville and Iwo Jima. That's 2 years later.
Yeah.
Saipan. But I was just lucked out because I was picked to stay there on that base. Otherwise, I might not be here now.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you go to Australia while you were there?
No, we didn't realize. Now they do R&R in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah. We were real close. If you look at the map, it's pretty close. But there was none of that back in 42 and 3. There wasn't none of that.
And it was probably for the better because Jack being Jack, and as young as he was, he'd have been getting in all kinds of trouble.
I got in a lot of trouble.
Did you get in some more trouble?
Yeah. Well, different things. Over in the islands, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you healed from your leg injury.
Oh, no, it took it 2 or 3 months, but eventually it healed. And I didn't have any trouble with it afterwards.
And that was in New Caledonia, or had y'all moved someplace else by then?
That's the only place that got liberty. That was New Caledonia.
Okay. Whenever I hear about New Caledonia, I always think of McHale's Navy, that show, because that's where they were stationed down in New Caledonia some, I think, on their PT boats.
Yeah, when we crossed the equator, I guess you know, maybe a lot of people don't know, but in the Navy, there's 2 classes. There's polywogs and shellbacks.
Yeah.
It don't make any difference how long you've been in the Navy. If you haven't crossed the equator, you're a polywog, a low form of marine life. But if you cross the equator, you become a shellback. You're a member of King Neptune's court. And I've got a document hanging on the wall. You can see it back there.
I've got it right here.
Now, that document is shellback certificate. Is given to me in January 1943. That piece of bamboo there is, I cut that down on an island I went in on, and I rolled that document up and put in there, and it stayed in that bamboo for about 60 years. It preserved that document. You can see the color's good. It's all legible. And I gave it to my son when I was about 75. I didn't know they were going to live to be 98. And he had it put in that Shadowbox picture frame and gave it back to me, and he'll get it when I pass away. But I'm real proud of that document. It's very well preserved. But on it says that whoever happens to be in my presence is supposed to do me the due respect that I'm due. Yeah. Anyway,
there's a whole ceremony that goes along with it.
Oh, it's a big ceremony. The shellbacks take over the ship. I remember one officer, they made him put his uniform on backwards. Everything was on his hat, the whole uniform, and gave him 2 Coke bottles taped together, and he had to go around with 2 shellbacks with him doing submarine lookout. So we was in heavy submarine water, and we did double the submarine lookout, but that was his job, that officer's job. So everybody on all the polywogs, which I was, got a subpoena to appear before King Neptune's court. They set up a courtroom on the deck, and so the shellbacks, I was on a fantail doing lookout, and the shellbacks come by and asked me, said, "Have you been through the initiation?" I said, "Yeah, I was really bad." Well, they jerked my hat off, and my hair was just blowing. They knew I hadn't been through there, so I had to go. And so I go before King Neptune, and he's got his bride sitting there with him. The ugliest thing you ever seen, you know. And so they read my charge was undue sack time. And they said, "How do you plead?" And I said, "Not guilty." He said, "What court finds you guilty, so you can either kiss my pride or suffer the consequences." Well, nobody gonna kiss this thing. So they put you in a style, and put a clamp down on your head and your hands, and jerk your drawers down, and paint your rear end with some concoction. Got shears up here in the trunk, and they chop all your hair off, and they built a tank, and they pick you up and throw you in a tank of water. Well, about a week before we get to equator, them shellbacks are making clubs about this long, about 2 foot long, out of 1x4 paddles is what it turned out to be. So they got a hot tail line, 2 of them, and as you run down that line, they're swatting you with them things. It was quite an experience.
I bet it was. It was initiation to becoming a shellback, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know whether they can do that nowadays.
Yeah, they call that hazing these days.
Yeah, I think that's against the rules now.
Yeah.
Oh, when Jack tells that story, it's just priceless to imagine him going through all of that. But he tried real hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was talking to one of our Korea War vets yesterday, Delton Parker, and on his ship, he got within 2 degrees, he said, of the equator, but never crossed it.
Is that right?
How close is 2 degrees?
Yeah, that's pretty close. That sounds like a story to me.
He said they didn't want to cross it because they didn't want to go through all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I guess what you
We only have one man that refused to do it. One man run up the mast and wouldn't come down. And they said, well, he won't get the certificate. So,
We've got a lot of people watching us this morning. Carla, you saw that Good Morning America, and then Good Morning to Mary, Rick, and Jack. Bill Henry's in there watching. And Richard Harding, he's a Marine. He said his dad was stationed at the Presidio in the 1930s. He came back to Texas on leave and had to hop the freight train. He always bragged that he was once a hobo. And that was probably pretty common, hopping trains. And our friend Thomas Holder, he's listening, and Michelle McConnell, she said, respect, sir. So then Thomas Holder said his father has one of those certificates, the shellback from the USS Reno in World War II. So got a lot of people watching the show this morning, and some of them have ties to World War II, just like I do, and a lot of others. So after you crossed the equator, you became a shellback. And did you have some more initiations later when you crossed back over the equator?
No. But when we crossed the equator, we didn't know where we were going. They hadn't told us or anything. But we finally learned that we was headed for Guadalcanal. That's where we're Solomon Islands. I use Guadalcanal more as a reference to the area I was in. So, because if I said Florida Islands, nobody would know about Florida Islands. But Florida Islands is one of the Solomon Islands. Is right up the top. That's Guadalcanal. That big area there is Guadalcanal. But right up above from it, that's Florida Island. We're about 20 miles across that bay. And that bay right there is called Iron Bottom Bay. Or across the Sounds, it's called Iron Bottom Sounds or Iron Bottom Bay. They tell me there was 1,100 planes shot down there in that area and 1,200 ships sunk there in that area.
Goodness.
So they nicknamed it Iron Bottom Bay or Iron Bottom Sounds. And we established that seaplane base on the Florida Islands. That little, can I point? Can you, that right up here, that's Florida Islands up there. Yeah. And that little neck of water you see going up there is called Purvis Bay. Well, Tulagi, where Kennedy was, is right to the left of that little stream of water. It looks like it's going up that way. Tulagi is right over there, about 4 miles from where I was. And I used to watch those PT boats come rowing out of there, going on runs there in the Solomons. And I didn't know at that time. I didn't know Kennedy from. I didn't know anything about Kennedy, but I read later on that he was on that PT boat base. I was there at the same time he was. You saw that show, PT Boat 109. It was about Kennedy. That was the same time I was there, 1943.
And when was the Battle of Guadalcanal? Was that later? When was the Battle of Guadalcanal?
They secured it in the first part of 43.
Okay. So it was secured.
The last part of 42, they secured it. And because I was there in January of 43.
Okay. But you still saw Japanese planes coming by, didn't you?
A lot of battles there on the water, a lot of air battles and battles there in front of it. We used to watch Guadalcanal had Henderson Field on it, and that was a big airfield, carried big planes. So the Japs was really after. The rest of us got hit, bombed, but not like Guadalcanal did, because they're trying to knock out that airfield. But the worst bombing we got was one night they hit our ammunition dump, and I don't know how many men it killed. It blew one guy's leg off, and my two of my gunner's mate friends, that's where they bunked. They stayed there. It burnt them real bad. And burn them real bad. And I don't know whether they died later. 2 years later, we heard they're still in the hospital. But that was one of the worst bombings we had.
There was a lot of big explosions from that ammo dump.
Well, we used to watch the bombings at night. A lot of the bombings almost always was at night. And that the sights and sound came into play there. We'd be over here, and we'd see the bombs going off over at Guadalcanal. It'd take about 5 minutes, though, we called them reports. We hear whoom, and then the dogfights at night, you'd see the tracers floating. And then all of us, there'd be a big ball of flame. We knew somebody got hit. We just knew a Jap had got it. So we'd all clap or holler because we thought another Jap went down. The last big raid we had, though, I'm not real sure, but it was in September 1943. I seen way off. It looked like a flock of birds. I thought it was a flock of birds, just specks. And they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, our radar picked them up. It was all Japanese planes. And they come in bombing and scraping, and that was the last big one we had. And then they broke our outfit up, and some of them moved on up to Gilbert's and Russell's and Saipan and all that. But I was real fortunate that they left me there as a what do they call them? Skeleton crew. Left there, a few men they left there. I was there almost 2 years, about 18 months. But now, get on with the story.
At 15, you hadn't been driving, so you learned to drive in the Navy?
Yeah, the first job I had was in a warehouse there, and they built a hospital up in the hills because they hardly ever bombed the hills. They always bombed down on the beaches. And so they loaded this 2.5-ton Studebaker truck. I got a picture of me in that truck. Yeah, there it is. Only my truck was closed in. It was like that one, but my truck was closed in. Well, they loaded that truck up, and they said, "Jack, take us up to the hospital." I said, "I don't drive. I've never been behind a wheel. My family didn't own a car." They said, "Well, get in that driver's seat. So there's a gear pattern on top of that transmission. Just follow that gear pattern." I said, "Okay." I'm 16 then. I get in there and chug-a-lug and finally get the thing rolling. And I get up to third. The thing had 5 forward gears. I got up to third gear, and I was going up the hill, and this road is just cut through the jungle with a bulldozer up the side of that hill. And I get about halfway up that hill, and the thing quit pulling. What to do now? I had enough sense to probably need a lower gear. Well, I took it out of third gear and put it in neutral. Then I couldn't get it in gear. I couldn't see behind me. I had 2 rear view mirrors, and I'm afraid I'm going over the side. And so I coasted all the way back down to the bottom. I put it in grandma. I had a grandma low. I put it in grandma. Went up the hill all the way back to the warehouse. I told them what happened. They said, "Well, you got to double clutch it." I said, "Double clutch? What's double clutching? I hardly know what the clutch is." But they taught me how to double clutch a big truck. And I drove that truck for a little while. I don't remember how long.
Yeah, once you learn to double clutch, you can drive those old vehicles pretty good because they didn't have the synchronized transmissions.
Over Guadalcanal, it was like a highway over there. It was, like I said, it's big. And them trucks would come down there doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And they'd have to cross the swamp where they're draining the swamp. They just put trestles wide enough for dual wheels. And them trucks would double clutch and put it on that thing. And then they'd ease across it.
So from
story, on that island, after I got away from that job there, they put me as a bow hook in a 40-foot motor launch, about like this boat here.
Yeah.
On those boats, there's got a 2-man crew. They got a coxswain and a bow hook. And the bow hook has got a pole about 12 foot long with a hook on it. And when the boat comes in alongside the gangplank, they kill the motor, and the bow hook pushes up, grabs the bow hook, gangplank, and pulls the boat in. So being that where we're assigned to this boat, Well, they called us up one night close to midnight and said, we got a job for y'all. Said, there's a group of men down on the beach. You need to take them to the galley and get them something to eat. And then you got a place to take them back. There's Japanese still on our island on the back. We couldn't get them out. So we got down there, and it's about 10 or 12 headhunters. They had bones in their nose, had the bushy hair and the red lips. And you see those red lips, there's a narcotic over there called betel nut. And they'll have a little piece of bamboo on the side, and it'll be full of that betel nut. And they take a straw in it, and they suck on it, it turns their lips red. So when you see them red lips, you know that that guy had been on a betel nut. They also had a little leather pouch on a string on their side. And when they killed a Jap, they cut his ears off and put in that bag. And that's how they got paid on the count on the ears that they had. We took them around there and let them out. And then we don't know. I don't know who picked them up. It's about 12 or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So that was kind of a
stories that aren't in your textbooks, aren't they?
No, you won't hear that story. I thought maybe I didn't see this. Maybe I wasn't a part of it. But later on, I read another book where they used those headhunters, and that whoever wrote that book said they were the best jungle fighters they had, best jungle fighters there was. With those, they had bones in their nose, and they had the bushy hair. And me and this one guy was on their boat with 10 headhunters, 10 or 12 headhunters. It wasn't too comfortable feeling.
A little unnerving, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Oh.
Yeah, I can remember my dad had some pictures from the Solomons and New Hebrides, and there were some pictures with some of these natives like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are we going from here?
Wherever you want to go. Let's see. We've got these are that Japanese raid.
Oh,
the last
story here. I got discharged. I was a cook, but I became a cook by accident. I heard 7,000 cases of beer with us. I don't know whose idea that was, and they put it's in cardboard cartons cases, and they covered them up at night, and they covered them up with tarps all around them and put guards around it. And I think the guards got drunk every night. It was night. It was raining. There was 6 in my tent down on the beach, and it was raining cats and dogs. It rains a lot over there, and they gave us big tarp ponchos. So me and another guy went up to the beer stash that night, and when it rained so hard, and we got 2 cases of beer apiece, 4 cases of beer, and we had to go right by the guard shack to get back to our tent. Every time you take a step, the bottles would rattle. So we creeped across. I'm 16. Yeah. We get back to the tent, and us 6 guys drank them 4 cases of hot beer. Well, the bosun mate come by the next morning about 6, said, y'all get up, eat breakfast, we're going to work for a work detail. He's in charge of work detail. We didn't get up. Third time he come by, we still ain't got up. He said, y'all on report for shirking work. Had to go to captain's mast again. And I got to captain's mast, and it took my stripes away from me and put me in the galley as a mess cook for punishment. Well, I'm washing pots and pans, and the cook come by. He said, how would you like to be a cook striker? And that's like a cook apprentice. I said, well, what do they do? And he said, well, you don't wash pots and pans. I said, well, that's for me. So I become a cook. But it was the best thing I ever happened in the Navy to me was becoming a cook. But about 3 or 4 months later, I took a test to become a 3rd class non-commissioned officer.
Got those stripes back.
Yeah, I got my stripe back here. And then about 6 months later, I took another test. I became a 2nd class non-commissioned officer, all because I became a cook. And
you still cook today, don't you? Don't you cook at your church?
The church I go to, we fed the seniors on Tuesday, and I did it for about 15 years. I was up to 60 or 70 people I cooked for until that virus hit, and that virus really hurt everybody. And,
yeah.
But now, as a senior center I go to, I cook down there a couple of times a month. I enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
One of those things you learned in the Navy and you've carried it with you all these years.
Yeah. I cooked for about 3 restaurants after I got out because I didn't know anything. I didn't have any job experience other than that. But eventually I went to work for General Motors, and that's where I retired from them. But before that, I got into home repair. I was doing home repair work, and at General Motors, they got off at 3:12, and for home outside door, that was like middle of the day. I'd come out of an air conditioned building and get on a roof at 4:00 and roof till 9. And we had 4 children, and my wife I can't say she didn't work. She took care of 4 kids. And,
Jack, now I want to go back into the Guadalcanal. I
Oh.
want you to tell us about your swimming experience.
Well, I was going to get to that. After I've been over there, like I said, they broke our outfit up, and I stayed there. But after almost 18, about 8, I've got my Navy record, and I kind of use the dates. I was there about 18 months. I say 2 years, but they came by and gave us, the ones that were there, there was only about 7 of us of the original bunch, gave us individual orders to come back to the States. They told us to get on a boat, take the boat to Guadalcanal, which is right across the bay, and go over there. And they had a shipping and receiving base there that you could put your name on it, and go down to the docks and put your name on a list down there. You might catch a ship coming back, or you go down to the flat line and put your name, might catch a hop. They call them hops back. Well, I did that, me and another 2 or 3 of us cooks. And I got a call from the docks that they had a Dutch refrigerator ship called the Bosch Fontaine, and I got a picture of it too. I just now got those pictures. But it's called the Bosch Fontaine. It was a Dutch ship that our Navy took it over and made a troop ship out of it. But it's called the Bosch Fontaine. And they said they'd bring us back, and we had to cook every 3rd day. And so I came back on that ship. But while I was there, I was a dock down there at Guadalcanal, and I went down there to go swimming. Well, I seen a boat anchored off out there, kind of like this one there. So I was going to swim out to that boat and try to get it running and run around them islands. Well, I got out there, and because there wasn't no key, and I didn't know how to jump it, and I didn't realize how far it was and how tired I was, but I dove in and started swimming back. And I think the tide must have been coming out, because I swam for a while, and it didn't look like I was getting very far away from that boat. And I began to get tired. I was really beginning to get tired. And I heard if you turn over your back and float, that you might not use as much energy. But when I did that, it felt like the tide was bringing me out. So by this time, I'm totally exhausted. And I wasn't a Christian, but I said, Lord, I said, I'm going to put my head underwater and swim as long as I can. And I did. I put my head underwater, and I blacked out. The next thing I know, they had tied a log up alongside the dock to put rings on it for boats to come in and tie up to. And my arm had gone up and over that log, and it woke me up. And I laid there, and the ladder was only about 10 feet over there, but I couldn't get to it. And I laid there. And this all started in the early afternoon. And this time it's starting to get dark. But finally, I felt I had enough energy to get over to that ladder. I got up the ladder and lay down on the dock, and I just kind of jerked. And then I was so exhausted. And but how come I swim right back to that? It's a miracle. I have to call it a miracle, because I could have swam down the line, I swam out, I could have swam anywhere, but I went right back to that dock. Well, by this time it's dark, and I get up and go over to the barracks and get in my boat. And I close. I do a skit sometime about how close I've come to dying. I've come close to dying lots of times, and I do a little skit about that. But that right there, almost that's about one of the closest I come, I think, because I didn't panic or anything. I just knew I was going to drown, and I just accepted it, but I didn't. Lord had a plan. I call it the Lord had a plan.
Oh, you're muted, Rick.
Yeah, the Lord did have a plan. He's kept you around a long time, hasn't he?
A long time. I'm still here. I lost my wife. We like 6 months being married 60 years, and she died 17 years ago.
Tell us about this picture here, Jack.
Well, that was the time I told you about the scraping. They come in and was scraping. Well, the LST was out there, and I don't know how many men they have. I would say around 45. I don't know. But they were bombing and scraping, and they killed everybody on that LST. And they pulled it up into that Purvis Bay that I pointed out to you a while ago. They pulled that boat up in Purvis Bay, and it stayed there for 3 or 4 days in that heat and sun. And they came over to our island and got a crew to go over there and get those men. Now, I didn't go over there, but I was up at the hospital when they brought the bottle bags in, and they just lined them up, and they killed everybody. And those men were, you can imagine in that heat, and over 2 or 3 days, some of the men told stories about it. It was really, really bad. That was in, I believe it's September of 43, but I'm not real sure about. I know about the scraping and the bombings, but the date I'm not real sure about. And this right here, I wasn't one they picked. I'm so glad I wasn't one that was picked to go over there. But I was at the hospital at the time they brought the body bags in.
Now, on a story that's not quite so heavy, Jack, was there some reason you were in Oklahoma, in the Navy in Oklahoma, and you made a phone call?
Oh, the Navy. Well, the first, after I got home, I got a 30-day leave, but I didn't stay. I went on back base. But the first base they sent me to was Clinton, Oklahoma. They have a Navy base in Clinton, Oklahoma. And so I got there, and none of them guys, I got a picture of them in there, those guys at that base, they got sent to Clinton, Oklahoma when they joined the Navy, and they never went nowhere else. They made their whole career time, and I don't know how long they were in, but it was at Clinton, Oklahoma. So I'd been overseas for a couple of years. I was really an oddity there, But and I just left Oakland, going to Clinton, and I'm going with a girl's name, and her name was Jean Smart. She worked in a bank. But anyway, when they left the office, I went in the office, and I picked up the phone and got the operator. I said, "Give me an outside line." She said, "I can't give you an outside line." I said, "This is Lieutenant J.G. John Sloan. You give me an outside line." "Yes, sir." And I called that girl. I remember her phone number, 80-something years ago, Humboldt 3819. and I got a picture of her, too, in there. But so I made a mistake, though, and I told somebody what I was doing. And they got back, and about a week later, I was shipped out. They shipped me to Siberia. I call it Siberia because they shipped me to the frontier base in Louisiana. What was the name? Anyways, on the mouth of the Burwood, Louisiana. It's on the mouth of the Mississippi River in the Gulf. The only way you could get to it was by boat. You couldn't drive to it. You could fly. You had to take a boat to get to it. You took a bus down the Mississippi as far as it could go, and you get off the bus on a motor launch, and it'd take you down to the base. But so on the way down there, I had malaria. We didn't get into that, but in those islands, I had malaria. And malaria is real, real bad. You have 106 fever. You're shaking and sweating at the same time. You go to the hospital, and they put about 5 or 6, 7 blankets on you. They come in every hour and wash your body down with alcohol and change the sheets because they're wet. And you have an air raid. They have to bring a stretcher in, take you to a bunker. And you lose about 30, 40 pounds in a week. And malaria is real, real bad. And I had it several times. But it hit me on that trip going to Burwood, Louisiana. So when I got down there to the base, I didn't go to the personnel office. I went to the hospital. And I told them I'd just come back from overseas, and I was coming down with malaria. Well, they quarantined me. And they sent me, they kept me about 3 days, and they sent me to a big hospital in New Orleans. And they kept me about a month. And then here's another story. They sent me from there to Houston. And so I'm a cook though at Houston. That's the best. I could come home when I wanted to. It's a very small base. It's a Brown Shipyard, and that's where they built the LSTs, the LCIs, and those different landing crafts. And their crew would come in on when they was getting ready to commission it. The crew would come into our base, but they didn't bring their ranks with them, and so they could bring their families down. Well, I was in charge of work there in the galley, and so I had the scullery and the cow line and the spud locker. The spud locker is where they made the vegetables and everything for salad. And if they worked at it, they could get through by noon, and I could let them go home and be with their family. And the scullery was real hot. Nobody wanted to be in there. So they'd say, Jack, how about me getting in a spud locker? I say, how much money? How much money you got? They come up with something. So somebody say, Jack, I sure like to get out of this scullery. It's hot and sweating. How much money you got? So they'd come across with some money, and I'd take them out of the spud locker, out of the scullery. Well, somebody got word back to headquarters. I shipped out again. Do good duty. They shipped me out again, shipped me back to New Orleans. I got back to New Orleans. I think by this time I'm about 18. I'm getting a little older. And
about 18.
Yeah.
He's getting a little older.
Getting a
He's
little
about
older.
18.
Yeah.
Got a combat tour under his belt already.
But this is where the cook come in bed. In the Navy, we're always what they call ship's company, especially in New Orleans. We had no curfew. Everybody else had to be in at 10 o'clock during the week and 12 on the weekend. But cooks had no curfew. We'd come in off an all-night binge at 5, 6 o'clock, take an apron on, and put an apron on and go to work. And this one time, we cooked the hotcakes and everything out on the chow line, and I had 2 men working on each line, and I had one guy pouring the hotcakes, the other guy's turning them over and taking them off. A guy named Wilcox, I'll never forget that name. So I come out there, and when the hotcakes bubbles, time to turn them over. I come out there and all them hotcakes was bubbling. I said, get them hotcakes, Wilcox. Well, he started taking them off without turning them over. I said, what are you doing, man? He said, you knew I was drunk. You shouldn't have put me out here. All right. It's quite a time.
It sounds like they moved you around a lot. Every time you start a little trouble, you'd get sent someplace else.
Yeah, that's the way they did. Yeah, but I settled down and I got discharged. I was in New Orleans when I got my discharge papers. They sent me to Norman, Oklahoma, and that's why I got discharged out of Norman, Oklahoma.
How come they sent you to Norman?
January 1946.
Why did they send you to Norman?
That's where the discharge base was.
Okay.
Yeah, they paid us some traveling pay. And at that time, I got there was a motor pool, different civilians had motor pools, and it cost me $5 to get a ride back to Fort Worth from Norman, Oklahoma. There's 3 or 4 of us in the car, and he got $5 a head, so he made about $20, $25.
That was good money back then.
Yeah, back then it was a lot of money.
Yeah,
it was making good money.
Whenever you left Norman and went back to Fort Worth, was that the first time you had been back home, or had you been back home when?
I got home when I was on a 30-day leave when I first came back from overseas. It was the second time. Yeah.
And after you got back to Fort Worth, then you started working?
Well, like I said, I had no job skills. So the restaurant where my dad ate, I went to work for them as a cook. And then I stayed there a little while, and there's another restaurant called the Roundhouse Cafe.
I know, yeah.
The railroad have a shop they call the Roundhouse. They bring an engine in, and then they work on it, and they turn it around and bring it. So it's called the Roundhouse. And the Roundhouse Cafe. And there's a little story to that. the guy there was the head cook was an alcoholic, and I was on a night crew, and that night I brought a 6-pack of beer with me and put in the refrigerator. And he come in, he said, "Who's that 6-pack belong to?" I said, "That's mine." He said, "That beer's got to go." I said, "Well, it goes, I'm going with it." And he said, "Bye." Got my 6-pack and walked out. Said bye. He didn't stutter.
Yeah, I used to eat at the Roundhouse Cafe when I was a teenager. I didn't live too far from there, but you go in there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and all those guys from the railroad would all be in there before they went to work, and then you'd see the next shift coming after they got off work, and they all had those bib overalls.
Yeah.
But that was a good place to eat.
Yeah. I didn't work there long. I didn't last long.
Took your beer and left.
Jack was still so young. He's trying to figure life out still. He's a typical teenager.
Yeah, I'm just doing what teenagers do. But anyway, I got into home repair work, and we were making, I was there's a floor called terrazzo. I don't know. It looks like marble. It looks like it's marble, but it's really mixed like cement and ground, and it comes out looking like marble. There's a whole process to it. And I was a floor finisher and making $1.25 an hour as a floor finisher. And so going out of town on the job out of town, you got $5 a day expenses for 3 meals. You got $5 a day. So there was no money. So me and my brother, Walter. Now he went in the Navy when he was 15, also my brother, 3 years after me. He went in and he was 15 in 3 days. I was 15 and a half, but he went in on Saipan. But we got to doing home repair work, and we'd make, $40, $50 a day or something like that. And maybe not a day, but anyway, we quit doing that other time. We just started doing home repair work. But when we hit $99, I don't know where we reached that figure, but we hit $99. We got our fishing pole, went fishing. And $99, I don't know where the 99 come in, but we'd get that fish. We carried the fishing pole in the truck. So we hit $99, we quit and went fishing. But about 1954, I was putting on siding on houses too. I had a project. I was putting siding on 50 houses, and it was a project work. And that didn't pay very much, but I was winding it up in the winter, and I was looking for an inside job. And General Motors had opened up an assembly plant in Arlington, which was only about 20 miles from me. And I went out there, and I eventually got hired. They almost didn't want to hire me because they said, "We've hired guys like you, the subcontractors and contractors," and said they just don't last. They just stay until the sun comes out, and then they're gone. And it was in the winter when I was trying to get on out there. And eventually I got on out there. Started off at like $2 and something cents an hour. But I ended up staying out there almost 30 years, and I became a all-car repairman out there after years, all-car repairman. And I worked out there almost 30 years. I retired out of General Motors in 1955. I believe it was 1981 anyway. 1981 when I retired. It was 1954 when I went to work out there. And I retired in 81. So it's 27 and a half years. I had a heart attack, and I went out, not right then. I went in and went to the hospital, and I got over the heart attack. I had 4 blocked arteries, but I was able to do angioplastic, and thank the Lord for angioplastic. And I opened them all up, and I went back to work with a lot of restrictions. Well, they had a retirement program called mutual agreement. That's where you wanted out and they wanted you out. So that's a mutual agreement. So at 56, they subsidized my Social Security for 6 years, and I went out at 56, but not on a medical, so I could work. So I went back in the home repair business, so I could work. You know, I wasn't on no restrictions. So but I went out in 81 on a mutual agreement, and since then I've had heart trouble. I've got 3 stents in my heart now, but I'm 98, and I do everything I want to do, and I love to fish. I've been able to fish all over Canada and Washington State, New Mexico, Colorado. Now I've caught fish 550 feet deep, weigh 75 pounds. I've got pictures of them. The Lord's really blessed me.
Do you fly fish too, or do you just fish with just regular rods and reels?
Rod and reel.
Okay.
Now, on some of those fishing rigs you can go out on, you can rent an electric reel.
Yeah.
For $10 more. But on these big fish that I caught, it wasn't on an electric reel. It was up in Straits of Juan de Fuca between Canada and Washington State up there. That halibut is what I was fishing for. That and lean cod. I caught lean cod. It weighed 45, 50 pounds. And halibuts that weighed 75, 80 pounds.
That's a big fish.
A lot of work. I would have done it one more year, but the last year, my brother's health is not near as good as mine. And I went to see him here about a week ago, and he's 95 now, but he don't weigh but 140 pounds, and he can't stand, he can't walk, and he's in really bad shape.
Where does he live?
He lives in a little town called Roy, Washington.
Okay.
That's right outside Tacoma.
Yeah, you know, Rick, when they went on that 80th trip to Pearl Harbor with Best Defense Foundation, and Jack still goes on a lot of trips with the Best Defense Foundation. I'll never forget, Jack called me one time and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but my brother's going too, and we're going to be roommates."
Yeah.
And he was so excited about rooming with his brother, being on that trip for the 80th for Pearl Harbor. And that, I think, was one of the really, really neat trips you got to go on.
Got to go.
And you've gone to Normandy a couple of times.
3 times I've been able to go to Normandy. My brother didn't go last time because his health wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
This last time was the 80th anniversary of Normandy invasion, and people from all over the world were there. And there's a little farming community there, and there was 150,000 people there. There were people everywhere. And to go in those places, they got a men's abbey and a women's abbey. It's a story.
Y'all kind of froze up a little bit. Can you hear us? Are you still there? Well, maybe they'll get back in a minute, but their computer or something froze up. Oh, there they are.
There you go.
Okay, you're back with us.
Yeah.
Are you going to
the men's abbey and the women's abbey that built in 1066? The man started building his first. And these buildings cover a block. The building itself covers a block. And his wife didn't like the way he was doing it, so she went down a few miles and built her one. So they got the men's abbey and the women's abbey. And we've been honored to eat dinner in each one of them over there. And I thought that's pretty unusual.
Yeah. Now, you've gone on honor flights to Washington, D.C.
I went on an honor flight to Washington, D.C., and I got another one scheduled to Washington, D.C. in December this year. Mm-hmm. They're putting it together right now.
Have you gone to the museum in New Orleans?
I was in museum in New Orleans for the grand opening for that museum, and it's the Higgins Hotel is real big, or Higgins' name in New Orleans, because that's where the Higgins landing craft was built for World War II. And the Higgins Hotel has got one of their landing crafts in their lobby, and it's right across the street. I thought I was going to get to see some of my old haunts, but as far as I got, the Higgins Hotel and the library, the museum is right across the street from it, and it's world-renowned museum. And they want some World War II back down there for this year. And I heard I don't know how many they got coming. On that, they got right now. They have 10 World War II museums going in Washington State. There are getting to be so many different organizations for wanting World War II veterans. It's hard for them to get them. A few years ago, right after the war, they said there was 11 to 12 million World War II veterans. About 6 months ago, my daughters looked it up, and at that time, there was 199,000 of us, and we're down at 131 a day. Now they say there's less than 100,000, and I don't know how fast we're dying. So in another very few years, there won't be any more of us left.
And so, of course, World War II veterans are in high demand. So every time somebody has a trip going somewhere, we get those calls. You know, just like we got a young man who is going to take 4 veterans on September 18th up in a biplane, the Dream Flight, and I'm still waiting for an answer from Jack if he wants to go up in that biplane.
Here's this. What's his
Valor. That's Gary Sinise, the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Now, Gary, he's trying to put a group together, and he's asking for some World War II veterans. I got this from him. He's trying to put a group together. There's not that many of us, so they're having trouble. Last year, there's a group out of Oklahoma called Liberty Jump Team. You familiar with them?
Yeah.
Liberty
Yes,
Jump Team. And they were here in Fort Worth last year, and they took some of us up in a World War II C-47. It was active in World War II and flew us around Fort Worth. We did, and they said, I run into them over in France. Again, because they have a big parachute jump every year over there in France. There's 150 in it this year. And I run into it, and they said they're going to be back in Fort Worth this year.
Yeah.
And they're going to look me up.
Yeah, they come pretty much every year. That's a group that Tracy Hunter works a lot with.
Is it?
Yeah. She must either had to work or got up late today, because she usually chimes in on here at some point. But yeah, so Jack is a busy guy. He's a world traveler.
Yeah. Liberty jumps with them. Yeah, Liberty jumps with them.
Yeah.
I met so many friends over there in France. I just got a call yesterday from a young girl. She's 19. Her nickname is Maddie. I forget now where she lives, but she calls me every once in a while. Jack Carr. Do you know Jack Carr? Have you heard of him?
The name sounds familiar.
Jack Carr is a world-renowned author. Here's his book. He's had several bestsellers. One of his books was the Terminal List. It was made for TV.
Oh, yeah.
That was his book. He and his daughter is named Riley. He was my brother's chaperone 2 years ago, and his daughter was mine. And so we got to know him. We didn't know then who he was. We just brushed him off. One time they came and knocked on our door to go to breakfast, and nobody responded. Well, me and my brother get up early, and we go down and eat. So they couldn't get over. They rapped and finally sent for a guard. But we're down to eating. Yeah. And on those trips, they give you a chaperone. And you're not supposed to go nowhere. I mean, the water fountain's 10 foot over there. You can't go get it without a chaperone, and make you get in a wheelchair and all this. But me and my brother, we just wouldn't have none of it, you know.
See, he's still a rebel.
Yeah.
See, Rick, wait, when he was 15 and 16, he was doing that kind of stuff, and now he's almost 98 and he's still doing it.
But
some things never change.
And Riley called me yesterday, and she calls me about every 5 or 6 weeks, and she just got back from a month in the outback in Alaska, and Jack just got back from Europe. He was doing his book signing tour in Europe, and it's just the different things that's opened up. I write to 2 or 3 people over there. One kid from Brazil, he was a caretaker up there. Best Defense Foundation recruited him, and he lives in Brazil. And I get phone calls from Brazil, and I get to write letters, and they write me back. And we do a virtual phone call between me and Leo there in France. And it's been such an opportunity, such a blessing. In later years, things that I've never dreamed would ever happen. It's just been a wonderful thing.
Well, we're blessed, Jack, that you're part of Roll Call.
Well, I've enjoyed.
Our paths have crossed, and we've gotten to get to know you and spend time with you.
We've been going to Roll Call about 7 or 8 years, I guess.
Yeah. We went to the Capitol. We've gone out. We've just done all kinds of stuff.
This girl, I mentioned a while ago, Liberty. She's a real pretty girl, a very pretty girl, and I've known her since she's about 17 or 18. And every time I meet her now, she's going to have a birthday in September. She'll be 28. Every time I meet her, I look at her ring finger, and she don't wear a ring. And so every time I see her, I look at her ring. And so
she talked about that when she was on the show with us.
Yeah. Did she? She brought this boyfriend with her, one of the parachute jumpers, and I whispered in her ear. I said, "Get rid of him. Get rid of him." She's mine. Anyway, I enjoy life. I think
you do,
like I have. I've got a good soul. I play 42 every day, dominoes, and I work these Tulagi puzzles.
Oh yeah. Sudoku.
Yeah, Sudoku. I'm on 170 something right now. 170. Anyway,
Jack stays busy. He is not a man
170 something. I'm on expert now, and I have to have a little help, but with numbers. But I live a good life. Good life.
You do, don't you?
I do. I try.
You're a blessed man, and you're a blessing to so many people. Because
but I'm the Lord's blessed me. I'm so I'm really blessed. 98 years old and do. I tell everybody I live by myself. Well, my daughter's living with me now, but I live by myself. I put my boat in and take it out. I drive 140 miles, but I can't walk 10 feet and get a glass of water. I'm on my own yard.
Our friend Carla Wicks said my first introduction to Jack was the trip to the Capitol. I was so impressed as he walked from the hotel to the Capitol when he was using his camcorder and walking faster than me. He is a treasure.
Yeah, Jack doesn't slow down for anything. He's just
he doesn't.
Ready, go.
Our friend Richard Harden, he's a Marine, said this is my favorite episode ever. So to come from Richard, that's something, because
that's very high praise there, my friend.
Richard, you'll have to look Jack up whenever you come to Roll Call again.
Yeah. I have so many friends. There's a family that I met over there named Will, and they live in San Antonio. They came up the other day, well, it'd been about a month ago, to have lunch with me. And just stuff like that, it's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Mary and I need to take you out for lunch. We need to go have lunch with you.
We'll set up a date.
Where do you live?
I just live on the west side of Fort Worth.
Oh, you're the photographer out there?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you. I'm sorry.
I don't have my camera with me.
That's the only way you recognize him.
Yeah.
He's got a camera in front of him.
Yeah, I had another lady there yesterday, Friday, taking pictures.
Yeah.
She's a lot prettier than I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Kay Harmon, and Kay's been coming to roll call a long time, and she brings her twin daughters there. So
Yeah.
It has been a great show.
well, Jack, do you have any words of wisdom you can give us before we end the show today?
Yeah. I think if you get a social life and you're busy and doing things, you keep your mind active, and go to church and quit smoking and quit drinking, you might live to be 98.
Oh my, it's been a pleasure.
I like my drink every now and then.
It's been a real pleasure and honor to have you on the Hometown Heroes podcast today. And I think before long, Mary and I need to come back over and we'll set some cameras up and do another interview with you because you've got so many interesting stories. You're a great American, and there's not many people out there that would have joined the Navy at 15 years old.
Yeah. Well, at that time, because everybody was patriotic, and there was a lot of gang activity back when I was 15, and kids getting in trouble and everything. And my parents thought if I could get in the Navy, maybe it'd do something for me. And as it was, it turned out to be a good move.
It did. Because
I came back, and I'm not sorry about any time I put in. It was a good experience, and I've enjoyed this interview. I mean, I've been free. It felt free, to talk and comfortable doing it.
Well, I'm glad. And Mary, we just had a roll call last Friday.
We did
at our temporary location. And how did that go? Did that go good?
I thought it went very well, and we were able to set the room up for we actually set it up for 432 people. So once we found we could do that and there was still a little bit of space, we think we can get back to pretty normal numbers next month. So we typically set up about 56 to 58 of the round tables. So we get up somewhere in that 460, 480 range as far as folks attending the luncheon. The sound system is really good. You just have to really hold that microphone close, and we got to see if we can't work on getting a second one. But all in all, it went incredibly well, don't you think?
It went well, and I couldn't get how much work they had to do. Somebody did a lot of work, setting all those tables up, putting all those banners up. The halls were lined with tables with stuff all on them. It's an awful lot of work went on. Somebody did lots of work.
Yeah, we got a great team of volunteers that came the Thursday before, and it was nice because we were able to actually set pretty much everything up. Roy set up the museum stuff on about 6 or 7 tables in the lobby.
That looked nice.
It's such a large lobby. He set it all up inside. People were able to walk around, look at things, ask questions. So, and we'll be able to have some other veteran resource groups come set up. I had another one approach me, and I said, as long as nobody's trying to sell anything to our veterans, if you're coming here and you have a service, then we will entertain allowing you to put a table up. So we had Mike Johnson, and he came and set up on Thursday, and he had a lot of information out about burial benefits and setting up for funerals and pre-planning, because that's one of the things that a lot of our folks don't think about. Their families might not know where their 214 is. They might not know what they want in terms of, do they want to be buried at DFW National? What's the plan? So I think that he realized that he had a lot of questions on that. So he asked if he could set up, and I said, perfect timing. So he set up a table, and next month we'll have the VFR, the Veterans Freedom Retreat. I think that's what that stands for. They're going to set up a table. And, my whole thing is, if you're offering a service to our veterans, you're offering something to them, then we can entertain it because we have the space where we didn't have that space before. So while they're doing the remodel at Birchman, and then we'll have more space, this is working out real well. It's a little bit further drive for some folks. The folks that were coming from the north and east of DFW or of Fort Worth of the church have about another 15-minute drive, but it's right off of 20. It's real easy. Exit 415, right behind the medical place. You can see it from 20. And it's got a massive parking lot. So, plenty of doors to get in and out. Everything went really smoothly. So it was a nice thing to have. And the pastor was there, and he said the very first prayer in the temporary location. So it all worked out great, and he was blown away and said he wants to do whatever he can to continue to help us.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, and next month our focus will be Gold Star families. So we've got, you and I, Rick, have talked about this a lot, along with Carla. We've got some planning going on in that. That's going to be Carla's baby, is one of our newest board members. She will be taking that on, and we'll have that going. So, we just continue to tweak things and work on making sure we have great programs for the incredible people that we serve.
Mm-hmm. And the next roll call is September the 27th.
So, and the RSVP line, I think, is going to open that Monday, the week before. I think it's the 16th. So
okay.
We're waiting till closer to the date. That worked out much better. We had far fewer cancellations. People had time to make all their plans. But the last time when we opened it, within 3 hours, we had 350 RSVPs filled. So, when the day that thing opens, if you want to come to a lunch, you got to get out there and RSVP, because within a couple of days, 450 seats will be gone.
It's the hottest ticket in town.
Hottest ticket in town. Free lunch for veterans. All we ask is the non-vets that do join us contribute the $10 cost of the meal, which has gone up just a bit because it's costing Brenda a little more to do all the transporting of the food and everything. So we're actually at 12, but we're paying 12, but we're not increasing that quite yet.
That's good. And October 13th is roll call's second annual clay shoot at Defender Outdoors Clay Sport Ranch. There's still time to sign up to shoot. There's still time to be a sponsor. Then October 16th, it's a Light Up to Live clay shoot with our friends over there with Randall Reed and his auto group. The 17th is Light Up to Live golf tournament. And then the 25th of October, we'll have another roll call. And November the 11th is Freedom Mobility Foundation. It's on Veterans Day, and it's going to be a golf tournament, probably fourth annual golf tournament up at Robeson Ranch up in Denton County. We've got some great sponsors lined up for that. We'll have some of our the people that we have served, giving them mobility vehicles. They'll be there. And then on the 21st of November is the Sky Ball. So we're looking forward to a lot of things coming up this fall.
Busy fall.
And Jack, it's been a pleasure to have you on Hometown Heroes. I look forward to seeing you soon.
I've enjoyed doing it.
Well, thank you so much. And Mary, we'll see you next week.
All right.
For the listeners that are on Facebook, if you'll go to Hometown Heroes Facebook group, please go there and become a member of that group. If you're watching on YouTube, just down at the bottom, right below the screen, is a place to like and subscribe to our channel. So we'd love to have you as a subscriber to our channel on YouTube.